Welcome to the four faces of cultural change. I think a lot of people ask this question, but really don't have a clear answer. And here's the question I'd like to ask. How are you best suited to bring change? I don't think we talk about that a lot because we assume maybe that change happens naturally or everybody kind of pushes for change the same way. But the truth is there's actually four faces to change. And we're going to hit them really quick and then we're going to talk about each one a little more and then give some considerations. So here's these four faces: the prophet, the subversive, the strategist, and the permeator. And each one of these handle change in a different way. They kind of architect the future a little differently. They interact with people differently. And so let's take a closer look at each one. First of all, the prophet. Highly truth-oriented, the prophet has the unique ability to bring uncommon clarity into a stagnant situation. They are typically decisive by nature and can be perceived as impersonal if they are not careful. The prophet is happiest when they can provide short-term solutions through direct communication that eliminate roadblocks and catalyze momentum. So if you see one word here or one idea here, it's that the prophet could be summarized by saying, let's go. They thrive on movement, they thrive on momentum, they want to see things happen. The second face of cultural change is the subversive. The subversive works behind the scenes, building a network of genuine relationships to bring change. They typically shy away from confrontation, but rely on their instincts and interpersonal skills when pushed. Usually great at asking probing questions, subversives are happiest when they see change come naturally, almost stealthily, as beliefs are re-evaluated. When you look at the word subversive, you might be tempted to have a negative reaction to that. And I would caution you there. Subversives are actually these great people who, like we said, stealthily, almost unnoticeably can bring change in an organization. They're very patient, typically very quiet people. They can have that little raised eyebrow or that little smirk that they know what's going on. They love to work behind the scenes, like we said, bringing change through almost imperceptible ways. But they're highly relational, and so they're very essential. Here's the third face, the strategist. A brilliant tactician, the strategist seeks to effect long-term change through careful planning and analysis. They are discerning in their relationships and can often appear utilitarian when stressed. Preferring to leverage facts for cultural change, strategists are happiest when researching important data that, when presented well, promotes the need for change. So what I want you to think about here with the strategists love data, they love facts, and they're typically very rational people. And so when you have to explain change or explain momentum or explain why you're doing something, the strategist is going to point to data. They're going to point to a decline in product sales, they're going to point to a decline in volunteer hours, or they're going to show something, and this is going to offer proof. Now here's the thing, if you tend to be a prophet, you need the strategist because the prophet can't win over everybody. The strategist often brings the hard facts. But if you tend to be a strategist, you also need the prophet because they're going to bring that relational capital in some senses. Here's the last one, the permeator. The permeator is the most invisible change agent. With a keen eye for long-term stability, the permeator is a patient, discerning, thoughtful relationship builder who values consensus and unity. Permeators often trust their intuition. They are happiest when they are freed to effect change naturally through a broad base of warm relationships. So the permeator is the key to your long-term success, to manage change in your organization. They know people, they know stories, they're often quiet too. This is not somebody that's going to have a very strong, prophetic, truth-oriented voice, but people trust permeators because of their ability to build relationships well. Here's how these look, kind of brought out on two matrices. This horizontal axis measures relationship. On the left side, you've got low relationship need. On the right side, you've got high relationship need. The vertical axis measures short-term or long-term. Now, this is not how long they're with your organization, how long they've been there. This is really kind of their eye toward change. And so if we can plot these four faces out, here's how they land. The prophet tends to focus on low relationship and short-term growth. They want to see something happen, and they want to see something happen now. They may leverage their ability to affect change through great communication, through a charismatic personality, but they're going to do it from a prophetic posture. Kind of against the prophet here is the subversive. They're sort of on the other side of the coin. They tend to be short-term. They want to see change happen quickly, but they're going to leverage their relationships. Relationships are important to subversives. Kind of kitty corner from them is the strategist. The subversive and the strategist are kind of opposites in this way, in the sense that the strategist can be low relationship, but they're going to go for the long term. The data and research they collect are important to forming the strategist's decisions. And then as kind of the rounding everything out, we have the permeator. The permeator has an eye for the long-term health and stability of the organization, and they're also high relationship. So when you see these four kind of plotted out, the natural question is, okay, well, what do we do with that? And here are the considerations that we have. The first one is to know your tendency. Which one are you? Where do you naturally drift? As you heard those described, was there something that resonated with you? Second thing you want to consider is your time. Where do you spend your time? What do you spend your time doing? So if you're a permeator, you spend your time building long relationships that you really want for the long term. If you are a prophet, you spend your time researching communication and building things that you can say really loudly and strongly. If you're a subversive, you kind of like to work behind the scenes and have great questions and have great conversations that ultimately will serve your purpose. If you're a strategist, you're always gathering data and doing research. Where do you spend your time? Third thing you want to consider is your team. Do you have a fair representation of all four faces on your team? Or is your team primarily strategists? Is your team primarily subversives? And I would advocate that you need a balance of all four. Last consideration for you is your trajectory. When you consider your trajectory, you think about where you are going personally. So as a prophet, you can only be prophetic about so many things before people actually get tired of your voice. Similarly, if you're a subversive and you like to work behind the scenes, people will begin to get cautious about you and get suspicious. If you're a strategist, people may grow tired of your data and research and analysis and want something warmer from you. If you're a permeator, your trajectory is actually the most at risk because although you're looking for the long term, it may take a long time to show fruit in your efforts to bring change. So those are the four things to consider as we face this idea of the four faces of cultural change. Thanks so much for listening.